Last night, I dreamt I went to Manderley again. Hello! Merry Christmas. So, around the end of the year, a lot of book talkers start releasing their end of year videos and their New Year videos. And a lot of those are my top books of the year, my bottom books of the year, books I want to read in the next year, and so on. Now, I wanted to be part of the fun. I sat down and I was going to make a video about my ranking all the books I read this year. And I started going through them, and there just wasn't enough books that I've read this year. Overall, I think I had 13 plus 8 manga volumes, if we count manga as reading, which, I do, but a lot of people don't. And I just thought it wasn't enough to really talk about, especially because some of the books were like craft books and like stuff for studying more than just fiction reading, I guess, or entertainment reading. And so I just decided to forgo making that video. I didn't make one for the previous year, and it did do well for me. But in my bones, I just don't feel like making that video, editing that video when I know I won't have a lot to say, and I also won't have fun making it because I feel kind of a bit of shame about how little I read last year. I do blame Joe Abercrombie for, I got stuck on his first book for about 2 or 3 months, where I wasn't reading it actively, but I was enjoying it. So, I'll blame the blade itself. But yeah, overall, my hope for 2024 is to read a lot more. Okay, now with that said, I thought about how to get myself to read more and to just get more things off my TBR. And one of the ways I'm going to do that is I've decided to start a project that's been in the back of my mind for probably for the last 6 months, but maybe even a year. And that is to read kind of the classic literature, the canon, if you will, specifically the Western canon. I think is more accurate to say. And I had this idea of reading the 100 best books of all time. And so I decided I'm going to start that this year. And I have a goal for myself that I'm going to read one of those books every month. So by the end of the year, I should have 12 books of classics read. And, I have other things I want to read. I can do audiobooks and other stuff as well to get more stuff off my TBR. But a lot of things that are on my TBR are classic books that I've never read or never read in English or have read but don't remember at all. Yeah, so from January 2024, I'm starting this new series where I'm reading the 100 best books of all time. Now, what does that mean? Like, who decides which books are the best books of all time? Um, Basically, what I've decided to use is there's this site. It's called thegreatestbooks.org, I believe. I'll have it linked, which is a site where you can make a list, and they themselves have a bunch of lists they've created. And I think the most famous one is the greatest books list. And how they do that is they basically have a bunch of universities and libraries and literary institutions. They take their rankings and they weigh them. They give them kind of weight depending on, I guess, how important the institution is. And then they average it all out. And they have a list of, I think they list every book. Probably not every book that ever came out, but like every semi-famous book is listed in that list. That list goes on for like thousands and thousands of books. Now, I went through this list and I curated the ones I wanted to read and also the ones I haven't read recently. So, for example, Pride and Prejudice, I read a year ago, so I'm not reading that one in this series, even though I think it's like in the top 20. Um, I also curated some books that I don't really think I will enjoy. A lot of poetry. I'm not a poetry person. I think I left one or two books of poetry in it, just to have some poetry. But I think I took out a lot of poetry, and I also think I took out, if I think an author is going to be not enjoyable for me, and they have multiple books in the top 100, I took out those as well. Um, Now, to be honest, I am calling this series the 100 Greatest Books of All Time. I am cheating quite a bit, mostly because it's not 100 books. I believe my list currently has 84 when I filtered everything out. And also, this site generally gets updated frequently, semi frequently. So when I first made my list, it really was the top 100 edited down to like, I think 60 something at that point. Currently, those numbers have changed, and some of the books that were in the top 100 are no longer in the top 100. They're like 114th now. And another one that wasn't in the top 100 is in the top 100 now. I'm not going to give you the current list I have because it might change. I might change it. I might just find an author that, for example, I left a lot of Dickens, I believe. And if I'm not enjoying Dickens, if I'm having a hard time getting through one of his books every month, and I think he has like 4 or 5 books in the top 100, I'm just, gonna skip him. So the title is a bit clickbaity. It's not gonna be so strict that I'm just reading the 100 best books on the site, especially since it will change over time, I'm sure. But yeah, that's what we're doing. And so for January of 2024, I am starting a book, Rebecca, by Daphne du Maurier. Maurier, I believe. I'm sorry. I'm kind of bad at pronouncing names. But yeah, I've heard a lot about this book, and I can't wait to get into it. The way we're gonna do this is I'm gonna vlog a little bit, but most of the time we will be talking like just my analysis after I've read it. I will try to keep it spoiler free, and then we'll go into spoilers at the end. So if you haven't read it, you can keep watching until I tell you I'm going to spoilers. Now, Rebecca, I have my notes right here. Rebecca was, as we said, written by Daphne du Maurier. Sorry, an English author, and the book was published in 1938. Currently on the site, it is the 87th greatest book of all time. This is a great example of the problem. I think it was the 100th book when I first made the list, and now it got upgraded, I guess. So not all books are going to be in the same order as you expect them to be, but it generally will be going towards the best books. And yeah, I can't wait. Let's get into it. Let the reading vlogs start. Okay, it is the 1st of January, technically the 2nd because it's like 4 in the morning, but I just started Rebecca. And I'm only a couple of chapters in, but I'm really enjoying it now. It's a little difficult for me, but overall I am enjoying it. I love the old lady that's like a snob and like a whole gossip, and I'm enjoying it. The main character, who is unnamed, just realized the poetry book she got from the like guy has like Rebecca's name in it, and it's really, there's a lot of beautiful prose. Possibly a little too flowery for my taste. But yeah, right now I'm really enjoying it. I'm enjoying the setup of Rebecca. It's a little confusing. The beginning of the book is a little confusing because she kind of goes into talking about what happened before and where she is now. And I was a little lost in time, but now she's like mostly talking about like how she met her future husband. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I'll give you an update soon. Okay, so I am about 160 pages in. And yeah, I am enjoying it up until this point. I just finished the scene with like Cupid when she broke the like Cupid thing. And yeah, I am really enjoying it. I was kind of scared because of the prose at first. I thought they were gonna be too purple for me, but I am, it gets much better afterwards. Well, not better, but just
more to the point. It still has moments where it's like, okay, this paragraph could be cut in half, but it's the charm of, I guess, this style of writing in this period of writing. Yeah, I am enjoying it. I have no idea what happens in this book, in this story. I do think it's supposed to be supernatural at some point, but it's not at this point. I haven't read anything to suggest that, at least yet. Um, I do think, um, if this were a normal book, the husband would be the husband killed Rebecca. That's like my working theory currently. Is that Maxime, I believe? I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but I believe he killed Rebecca. Um, if this was just a normal book, it would be that, but this is like a really famous a novel, so we'll see. I have no idea where it's gonna go, but hopefully I like it. But yeah, I'm probably gonna read probably more 50 or 100 more pages before the next check-in, but I'll see you then. So, I am reading currently, and I just realized, I think linguistically, or I guess, from the craft perspective, a thing I don't like that Daphne du Maurier does a lot, and that is she she does a lot of hypotheticals, as in, so like she's imagining something and then she describes it in great detail of what will happen, but it's all in her head, and that happens a lot. And I'm not the hugest fan of that. I'm like, because those, like, let me show you the pages if you can see them. Um, like when you see blocks of text that are, can you see it? Like it is thick. There's no dialogue. There's no like quick paragraphs. It's one of two things. One is um, her kind of just describing things, which is I'm more okay with, and the other would be her doing this hypothetical. For example, I'm now at the part where Maxime is at the courthouse, and she's like now at home and she's thinking about, oh, they're gonna take him away, and then this is gonna happen, and then this is gonna happen, and then this is gonna happen, and he's gonna have me say this, and I'm gonna have to wait here, and it's just like, and then after that something's gonna happen, and then after something's gonna happen, and it's just a block of text that could have been taken out. Like it's fine sometimes, but it happens a lot. I feel like it pads out the book a little bit, and I'm just really excited for where it's gonna go. But besides that, I am loving it. I'm at 355 currently, so there's like less than 100 pages to go. So it's like 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning, and I'm sick. But I needed to film my reaction because I just got to the part where Maxime admits to killing Rebecca. I knew it, though I did not expect him to um, admit it this early. Yeah, so even though I could tell that he killed her, that's where the story was gonna go, I'm not. I do think it's a bit too early. There's like over 100 pages left in this book. It's not the twist ending, and I like that for now. But yeah, I'm not gonna ramble on for too long. I'm gonna do one more chapter, and then I'm gonna try and sleep and probably get better. Talk to you later. I just finished Rebecca. Um, why am I wearing the same shirt from the intro? It's because the intro was filmed when I finished the book. Now, let's just get into the like non-spoiler. I do want to try and keep the non-spoiler fairly quick. Yeah, Rebecca, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Today is the 27th, right? 28th? Today is the 27th, and I finished it technically. I'm technically this morning, but like before going to bed. So let's say on the 26th, I finished it. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 5 stars because I do think it deserves it. So, what is Rebecca? First of all, let's just get that out the way because if you haven't read it,
Um, I feel like there's a lot of false advertising about this book. Like, it's almost better if you say what Rebecca isn't as a book than what it is, because there's just so much kind of misinformation about it. So, really, the best way you can say what Rebecca is, it is a gothic drama and maybe a mystery, but not really. It doesn't have the kind of usual mystery format. But gothic drama is truly its genre, I believe. What it isn't is a romance. It's not a love story. It's not thriller or suspense. And it is not a supernatural thriller. I fully, when I got into it and just reading, the like back matter and the like little things on the side, I was like, okay, this is gonna be a ghost story. But it wasn't. I think the word haunted is used a lot in the marketing of this book, which isn't inaccurate, but this is not a supernatural book at all. It is just a gothic drama, period, full stop. I've seen a lot of people on like Goodreads leave reviews, and you go through their review, and everything you loved about the book they hated, and that's because they expected this to be a romance or at least a love story. Now, a difference between a romance and a love story is love stories don't have happy endings or don't need to have happy endings, and romances do. But yeah, overall, I think if you go into this expecting a gothic drama, you will be very happy. If you go into this expecting love, romance, you will be supernatural horror. You will be disappointed. I wasn't too disappointed. I still gave it 5 stars. I was just surprised a little bit. I was like, because I was reading and I was like, okay, there's something creepy is gonna happen, right? 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 No. But I definitely, when I accepted that what it was, I fully enjoyed it. And, I've been thinking about it for the whole day and thinking about, how I'm going to make this video and what I'm going to talk about. And I really concluded, yeah, it is 5 stars. It truly um, fits all, at least my criteria for a 5 star. Now, does a book being 5 star mean it's in the top 100 books of all time? I feel like that is also so much of a personal preference. Do I think it can be? For sure, I think. I think it has a sophistication to it. I think it has the craft level needed, the storytelling needed, the kind of legendary impact. Let's get into what I really liked about the book. The word gothic, usually you think supernatural, at least I do when I think gothic, when it's not just architecture, right? I do think of like something supernatural in a way, but it technically doesn't have to be. And I actually Googled this, and Gothic can also mean just basically kind of scary, and also the intrusion of the past upon the present. That is what Gothic can be, a characteristic of a Gothic novel, and that's what Rebecca is. It is the memory and the kind of legacy of Rebecca haunting the people at Manderley. Also, I should mention I did read it, obviously, and not listen to it, so I might get a lot of pronunciations wrong. Also, like I said, the word haunting is used a lot in the marketing of this book, and just in the overall analysis and discussion of this book. But I will say, I don't think this is a scary book necessarily. Um, a little creepy, sure, but not necessarily like ultra scary. Which is another departure, I think, from like the word gothic, at least for me. But regardless of all of that, when you really start getting into it, um, you fall in love with the style of the prose. Even though I'm not a flowery person. I'm not a flowery prose person. I don't necessarily enjoy when you take 10 pages to say something you could say in one sentence. And Daphne du Maurier doesn't do that here, but she does go pretty flowery. But it is just at the tip of what I can accept and enjoy, especially when she is describing Manderley and the like nature around it. It is very lush and strong, just strong prose, which I really enjoyed. If you like that, if you like descriptions that are meaningful, and I don't mean like she doesn't describe people very much. She doesn't describe the dresses and the suits people are wearing or whatever. It is very much environmental. She describes, the Manderley estate, both the house and just the nature around it. Now, some authors do like a lot of parallels between how a character is feeling and how they're looking at the environment they are in currently. I don't feel like she does that too much here, but there is a little bit of that as well. But overall, just the prose, magnificent. Just the prose themselves could put this in my personal top 100. Now, my next positive is Manderley itself. This is one of those books that um, take a location and they really make a location a character in the novel. A book I've heard that I also believe is in the top 100 that also does this is, oh god, Quasimodo, but it's not Quasimodo. It's The Bell Ringer of Notre Dame, I believe. Is that the name of the book? Oh my god, I'm uncultured. But yeah, I really like that trope, I guess, when a location is a character in itself. And Daphne du Maurier definitely does this with Rebecca. With the amount of just obsession the main character has with Manderley and talking about Manderley, and just the amount of times, not just even the main character, but everyone in the book uses that word. It's truly, it truly makes it feel important. Manderley was created from a real world place called Manabilly? Minabilly. Manabilly. There's a real world house that inspired, I think actually there's a few places, but Manabilly was like the main one that inspired this house. And when you look at like the old pictures of Manabilly, you realize how good the pros are, because that's exactly how I imagined this place. Daphne du Maurier actually lived in that house, I think, for a couple of years. I think 20 years or something even. And you really feel her love of that house translated to this book, with how much, even especially the main character, talks about. Now, there's a reason why the first line is so famous. Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again. It's because people want to go to Manderley. Like, honestly, when you just look at the picture itself of that place, you don't think it's that beautiful, even though the description of it is completely accurate. But just the love of that house, that place, is so beautifully translated. Now, another thing I loved about this book is, I guess, that gothic element of just the past haunting the current day, the current characters, and that is completely um, embodied in Rebecca. To the point where on this, I think this is a fairly famous cover of Rebecca. You just have the slanted R, and that is enough for anyone that has read this book to understand. You know it's Rebecca. You know who Rebecca is. You know everyone loved her. Everyone keeps bringing her up. There is not a chapter in this book that goes without Rebecca. It is so focused on just how much this entire world is consumed by Rebecca almost. And I love that. I loved how focused, even though there are these long descriptions and this flowery language, it is still very much focused. And I also love that about this book. I do want to say it is not that scary, for me at least. I did not find this scary. I've read some reviews where people are like, oh, it's scary for me or whatever, but it's truly not. This is not a horror novel. This is not a, you know, I wouldn't even consider it suspense or thriller, because nothing too thrilling actually happens in the book. There isn't a lot of action in the book for it to be considered thriller or a suspense. So, and I'm fine with that. I not expect this to be overly action packed, but just, keep that in mind. Another thing I loved is I guessed a twist, but only one of them, and there were quite a few. It is a, you know twistful book, and if you like that, if you like mysteries, but it's not. It's not a standard mystery. It's not. There's a question asked, and then you find the answer at the end. That would be like normal mystery. This is more like they're just twists and turns, and you don't see all of them coming. And that's another thing I really enjoyed. I loved that it was so. I guess if I didn't guess anything, I think I would have enjoyed it less because I think I really enjoyed guessing it and then like being proven wrong. Like what I guessed was in like the middle of the book, like here. And I just really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed having it so familiar and yet still, zigging and zagging where I thought it was gonna zag and zig. Now, possibly the best part of this book is the nameless narrator. So, the narrator, the main character of the book, it is in first person. Um, the narrator is never named. We only know her as the second Mrs. De Winter. That is it. We don't get her name for her. We don't get much of her backstory. Really, she could be considered, and I think probably is considered, unreliable narrator, because the book opens with the ending, not the ending of the book. The book opens after the ending of the book, so you know where she's at, and she's very cynical, and she's very nostalgic, and she's very different than what she is in the rest of the book. And you realize this is her from a perspective of someone that has lived through all this, telling you this story. And you shouldn't believe her. Oh, and I also need to say, Sarah Perry did an introduction for this that is beautiful. Oh my God. I need to, I'm going to read it, just a tiny bit of it for you. But I think she really, especially in this part that I'm about to read, gives you a perfect guide of how to go through this book, what to expect in this book. I'm going to try and read it for you. I don't have the best reading voice, sorry, but stick with me. This, however, is not a book to be trusted. Du Maurier holds up the gilded mirror in which Manderley is reflected. But first she broke the glass. For Rebecca lives also in Mrs. Danvers's curiously bitter grief, and in Maxim's restless fits of anger, and in the boathouse with the mouldering books and furnishings, and in the stuttering terror of the savant Ben, who digs for seashells on the shore. And then this part is so good. Nor can you trust the innocent narrator, for all her insistence that she is drab, shy, uncertain of herself. We certainly know this. The name, we are never told, is lovely and unusual, and it becomes her well. She lands herself a wealthy lover in a Monte Carlo hotel. Her passions are ignited as much as by violence as by ardor. Basically, what she's telling us is it is very possible that the narrator is kind of a gold digger, or at least a very sly person, a very capable person, which through the book she does not exude confidence. She does not exude class or power or anything. That's completely reserved for Rebecca. But this introduction really allowed me to think about this and just notice the little things when she, you know, even though she doesn't know anything, she's new to this, and she doesn't ask too many questions. She doesn't ask how to live a life of a very rich person, even though she's not rich in the beginning. But she knows these things somehow. She doesn't ask, she doesn't know like where to go in at 10, where to be, where they're gonna eat at 1 or whatever. But those are things that are specific to the way they run the house, but not general stuff. But when it comes to general things, she's very much able to converse and understand all the people around her, even though they should be a different class from her, a different type of people from her. And contrasting those capabilities and also kind of her style of speaking at the beginning of the book with how she shows herself in the rest of the book, they you can't fit those two together completely. And then you realize this kind of, creepy moment of this nameless narrator probably isn't telling us the truth, or at least not the whole truth. And she's also extremely introspective, and she goes on these tangents, and that's one of the things I didn't like about this book. She like sees something, and then she creates these hypotheticals that last for pages and pages, maybe not pages and pages, but definitely paragraphs and paragraphs of then this will happen, and then this will happen, and the leaves will fall, and whatever. And she's very much in her head. And as she talks like this, you kind of sometimes lose her. You almost kind of go like, okay, what's gonna happen next? I know what you're doing. You're kind of just musing about random shit that I'm sure kind of represents her emotions at this time, but they don't necessarily need to. And so this questioning of the narrator, both her actions and also how she is trying to paint these actions, what she's doing, um, really, at least I think, she comes off as very antisocial, very, very sly, you know, very oddly similar to Rebecca in some ways, because she, for example, there's a scene, it's at the end of the book, and she's sitting in this bar, and her husband isn't there, and she orders something, and she speaks French for some reason. And I think she even says it's like for no reason at all, which is a very like gamey thing. It's very Rebecca of her. She lets the mask fall just a little bit, and also the gold digger allegations. I think I'll have to go into more spoilery things, so I'm gonna keep that for the spoilery part. But I feel like you definitely can make the case that this is a story about a gold digger at its core, but it's not represented as that. You won't get that in this book. You won't get it as clearly as that. You would have to find it. And the fact that you're even searching for things so deeply tells you that this is a really good book. Now, like I said, I did not like the introspective, the kind of. She's also very passive, I would say, as a character. She doesn't do a lot of things. So, if you don't like passive female characters, that might get on your nerves a little bit. Also, there's a level of, I think, conservativeness to this book. Now, if you go by disliking the narrator, or not disliking, but not trusting the narrator, or seeing the narrator as not a source of truth, but a character in itself to be analyzed, you could say that the main character or the narrator is very conservative in the way she tells the story. You could also, I think, make the case that Daphne du Maurier is conservative in this book, at least. I'll talk a little more about that in the spoilery parts. It's not anything too crazy, but you can definitely make a case for it. And if you don't like those things, if you want something a bit more experimental, I guess, probably you shouldn't read something that's from 1938. But I definitely think Rebecca pushes some lines enough to avoid that criticism of being completely conservative. But yeah, there are shades of that.
Hello, it's editing me. I seem to have a lot of footage for the spoiler part of this video, so I've decided to split them up into two videos. So I'm gonna stop now, and I'm gonna release the spoiler review of this novel probably in a week. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I am so happy and grateful if you got to this part. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.